Welcome to So You Think That Was Good, Do You? A podcast where we take a look back at the films from your childhood and question the absurdity of their universes. My name is Evan, and for the third wonderful week in a row, I'm joined by Pantile, DJ, producer, and beautiful soul, Jonny. How are you doing, brother?
I'm very, very good. Very good. I had a bit of a tired day yesterday, so we put it off a little bit. But today I'm coming through, a lot of energy, and I'm ready to talk about this nonsense film.
Oh, yes. Well, this week, we wanted to follow on from some of my favourite episodes that we've done so far, like Anaconda and very recently Arachnophobia. So we went with another monster movie. This time, the flick we picked was Lake Placid, 1999, starring Brendan Gleeson, Bill Pullman, Bridget Fonda, Oliver Platt, and a little later down the lake, Betty White, which I was not expecting.
Playing someone who you don't expect her to play at all.
No, she was nuts, but I'm sure we'll get to that. I thought I had seen this movie, which is why I felt kind of confident picking it, but I remembered none of it, so I think I've just heard of this movie.
Well, it is sort of revered as like a B-movie icon, isn't it? It's one of those sort of creature features that's in the same vein as Arachnophobia and Anaconda, and they also all just blur into one, so it's easy to get confused.
Creature feature was exactly the words I was looking for when I was writing that introduction, and all my brain could conjure was monster movie.
Well, it still works, but yeah, I think the actual thing is creature feature. But I think we should coin monster movie as its own thing.
I have a real disposition for alliteration. Disposition? Is that the right word?
Yeah, I think so.
Will you like it?
Yeah, you're disposed for something.
Yeah, I love that. Dispose of me. I love that shit.
I'm virtually illiterate, so...
Well, let's get started, as we always do, with a quick plot synop, and if I dare say so myself, leaving that in, this is definitely the laziest one yet. This is from the top of Google. This is their best one. So here we go. In the film, great start. I know you're talking about the film. That's why I've looked this up. In the film, a giant 30-foot-long monstrous saltwater crocodile terrorizes the fictional location of Black Lake, Maine. The film also follows a dysfunctional group who attempt to capture or kill the beast.
Oh, concise. I'll give it that. It's on the nose. Doesn't give too much away.
I do think I'll go to ChatGPT from now on to do funny ones, because that is pretty bleak.
Yeah, I mean, at least it's going to spice it up. You could make crocodile every other word.
Well, when you've perfected a format.
Yeah.
Well, if that is all, shall we get started, Jonny?
Let's get cracking.
Not that we need to after that perfect synopsis of the plot, but let's do our best to top that. We start, as we always do in these monster movies, TM, with a panning shot of a river. Yeah,
I mean, it's exactly the same shot, pretty much shot for shot, the same one as in Arachnophobia and Anaconda. So
definitely
is it
Anaconda.
Is it a prerequisite for this kind of movie? Yeah. We're going to have to watch more to see if it is, if it follows through in every single monster movie.
Oh, we're pivoting. We're renaming the podcast Monster Movies. We're only doing these from now on. Perfect.
Exclusively.
So yes, we're panning over the river, and then you think the movie's begun, but then we are submerged into the egregiously murky depths for a opening credit sequence where it's just all green and little bits flying through the water, and a good 20 seconds of just people's names in Arial.
Yeah. With a murky green Windows XP background.
We're then introduced to Sheriff Hank. I did originally write his surname, but have no idea how to pronounce it, so I'll just call him Hank for the rest of this episode, who's played by the marvellous Brendan Gleeson, who I was not expecting in this movie, but here he is.
He was brilliant.
Awesome. Yeah, really funny.
I thought he saved it for me.
For sure. We're going to get into it. And his character isn't likeable, but he is by far the closest to likeable of anyone in this movie. So he's in a boat with an agent from the Fish and Game Agency, which is, if you're American, I'm sure you know what that is. I'll assume they're an agency that deals with fish and game. I don't know.
We don't have that in the UK at all. It's like You get the Wildfowl and Wetlands Trust or something like that, but that's like all charity people in like their 70s trying to look after newts, like
trying to convince us that ducks are going extinct or some bullshit. Yeah, that's a shot at you, Sam.
Steal my fucking bread.
Fuck you. Yeah, so they're out on the water. They're looking for something. I don't know what, but it's not important. The fishing game
I think
guy.
they're tagging otters or beavers. Sorry,
beavers. Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
That's why he's up in. As we're about to find out, he takes a dive into the water. I didn't take his name for this very reason, because
it doesn't matter.
the movie's got to begin somehow, and if there's a guy's name you're not going to take, it's this dude.
Yeah.
And he's searching in the riverbanks, which I realise now are beaver dams.
Beavers. Yeah, I kept on getting confused too.
And he gets yanked away from the dam and pulled towards the boat. He seems to get up above the water at one point. He's like, he's okay. This is just going to be a scare moment. But then Hank attempts to pull him into the boat, but he only gets about half.
The lead up to that bit where he's bitten, it's an underwater camera, and it's leading on from the credits and what have you, and then you see his legs like dangling underneath this beaver dam, and the camera just goes directly at his arsehole. It's like I wanted to see from like the side the cameraman who's swimming underwater, who then probably after that has to swim into this man. It was an interesting choice, but yeah, dude gets bitten in half. So
yeah, pretty sick opening scene. It looked pretty good.
When he was coming out of the water, it was a bit patchy, but in the boat, I thought that man had legs earlier and now he doesn't. So
legs are generous. He is missing hips. He's maybe just chest now. Pretty sick. Looks good.
Yeah.
To be fair, a lot of the stuff in this movie looks pretty good. I mean, it's far and few between shots of the crocodile or like full-on gore that is CGI of any kind.
The problem arose where it was jumping between, well, I mean, we'll get into it, but when it was jumping between the models or the animatronic stuff and then the CGI, because, I mean, this was 99, so it was still coming along drastically, but it wasn't all there. So when later on there's a bear, we'll talk about it anyway. We'll talk about that then.
Oh, okay, I know exactly what you're going to talk about. Yes, that is terrible, and we will bloody get to it. Anyway, we're now shooting over to the Natural History Museum in maybe New York. Yes, definitely New York, because they make fun of it. Oh my god. Yes, definitely. Oh my god, what is happening?
Oh god.
Definitely New York, because they make fun of her later for being from New York. We're introduced to Kelly Scott, a woman who we're introduced to as confusing hyperventilating with meditating.
That's not what it sounded like, though, going into that shot, though, was it? It sounded like she was banging.
Like sex. Yeah. But we're about to learn that this is the very last woman on Earth you would want to fuck, because she is awful.
She's the most egregious human being I think I've ever seen in cinema.
Mad that she is one of the main characters in this.
As someone who's portrayed as a protagonist, I would rather be eaten by a crocodile than spend 10 minutes with her.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I'd want to be that guy at the beginning of the movie who never had to meet her, for
Take
sure.
my legs. Take them.
So none of this is really important, but we'll quickly run through it. She's in her office crying, and one of her colleagues comes in and tries to console her. It turns out she's just been dumped by this fucking uggo guy she works with. She's super upset. It's all crap. The only confusing thing about this scene is that there are dinosaur bones in front of her, and nobody is interested in those whatsoever. It looks like she's exhuming it in the room, but she's just sat there sobbing and crying and hyperventilating. Very, very confusing. The other woman's name is Myra, but you absolutely don't need to remember that because she's not in this movie again.
No, she is gone. Well, the only thing that this bit sort of means to the film is that I guess later on she has a reason to stay in where are they? Maine. That's literally the only point because she doesn't want to go back to work. So,
Jonny, I don't want to keep saying we're going to get to that, but I have a rant specifically about that because that is the most bullshit reason to keep this person who none of us like in this movie. It has absolutely nothing to do with the crocodile that this movie is about.
She's a fucking paleontologist. It's like getting a pilot to look at like a plane crash. Like it's that's after the fact. It's so pointless. Anyway, Yeah.
That's important to note because I did skip that there. She is a paleontologist. That's why what she's doing at the museum, but she is not a field agent. Remember that because that's going to come into play in a second. But we're jumping back to the lake and get used to that because this movie is fucking all over the place. We're back at the lake and another fish and game agent, just another one. The first one died and they just sent one more called Jack Wells, meets Hank, the sheriff, back at the river. And they're taking a look at the body, and Jack asks if this is how he came out of the water, which is insane. No, we did that to him afterwards. The rest of him is over on that sandwich table.
Well, we thought we would mutilate the corpse just to make it easier for the autopsy. No. The first time he was like, maybe it was a bear then. He opens it, he just sees no legs. He's like, well, no shit. The guy's fucking like, obviously it's not a bear.
Oh, mate, you say that, but everyone thinks it's a fucking bear in this. Yeah. I'm going to say it again. We're going to get to that.
There's going to be a lot to get to.
Of course. Of course he came out of the water like that. Now, we're back at the museum. Why they couldn't just put all the museum scenes in one place and all the lake scenes in another place, I don't know. But the film's trying to keep a pace, I suppose, because the crocodile isn't showing up for a fucking while.
Yeah.
Kevin, the guy who's just jumped Kelly, is telling Kelly about the accident in Maine for some reason he knows about as the curator of a natural history museum in New York.
Night at the museum. He doesn't want the body coming there so that Ben Stiller has to look after it.
And he explains that a man was killed in this lake in Maine. And he says that it was probably a bear. If you think it's probably a bear, end of query. But they found a tooth, one that couldn't have come from any bear. So in one sentence, this jag says it's probably a bear, and then absolutely cannot be a bear, all in one go. And this isn't the only time this happens in this movie. And I'm going to say it again, guys. We're going to bloody get to it. But people love setting something up as if it's some sort of tension and then immediately popping that balloon for you.
Yeah. Well, it could be this. Jokes, got you. Got you again.
He goes on to explain that the tooth looks prehistoric, which is kind of intriguing because you're like, oh, fuck yeah, this could be a dinosaur. But that's the last time anyone mentions anything like this. Yeah, and he alludes that it could be a dinosaur. That's what he means by prehistoric.
Yeah.
It's not only probably absolutely not a bear, it might actually be a dinosaur, but it's unlikely. Nobody mentions dinosaurs again, though, don't worry.
No, the only reason that she would ever be in that location is no longer mentioned.
This is all to get her there. But don't worry, Kelly doesn't like doing anything quickly or easily, and she is fucking gobsmacked that she would have to go to Maine to go look at her tooth, which is her fucking job, by the way.
Yeah.
What, does she only look at dinosaur bones that she finds within the 5 kilometres between her house and work?
Exactly.
Of course you travel. But she is astounded that Kevin thinks she is a field agent.
Surely she must have done when she was doing her degree or her masters and whatever. She must be a fairly educated woman to be working at the Natural History Museum. She must have left her office in which there were bones to find more bones. No, these are all of the dinosaur bones I'm willing to look at. Bring them to me I'm gonna look at them.
I fully believe she just walked into the previous paleontologist's office and spoke until that person left and took the job. Or when I edit, it's going to really annoy me how I just said paleontologist. Cut that in there, put it back. So after Kevin's having none of it, that she doesn't want to be a field worker, of course you have to be. But then she tries to get out of it by saying she's allergic to timber, which threw me through a loop because I was like, surely that's not a real thing. So I Googled it. Turns out there is you can have a timber allergy, specifically sawdust and such. But it's still a fucking dumb thing to say, so fuck Kelly.
There's going to be a lot of fuck Kelly in this, because, my God, that woman.
This woman is a bitch.
Yeah, and nothing highlights that more than the next bit where she's in the plane.
Oh my God, yes. She wraps all these excuses up by saying that she's absolutely not going to Maine. That's ridiculous. And then immediately cut to Kelly flying to Maine. By the way, for some reason, this is a light aircraft, not a commercial flight. She is the only passenger in a small plane with, just the pilot. Like in Kangaroo Jack, where they're trying to shoot Kangaroo Jack out of the sky, but they're next to each other rather than one in front, one behind.
Of course.
For someone who's not a field worker and who is like astounded that field workers exist, they got her in the field pretty fucking quickly, didn't they?
Yeah. Almost as if she has a background in field work and that she's done it many, many times before. I don't know.
There's too many trees out there. I can't possibly go.
Never mind the crocodiles. It's the trees I'm worried about.
The pilot tells Kelly that the flight might get a little rough over the mountains that are coming up. And Kelly just fucking deadpan looks at him and responds, "Yeah, that's fine, thank you." Then she pauses for a moment and thinks about it and turns back to him and says, "Can you not talk to me? Thank you." This is our protagonist. We spent more time with her than anyone else yet. Why is she such a bitch?
It wasn't even set up that she has like a fear of flying or something. Like if she was very nervous passenger and like it might get a bit bumpy, and then she said that, maybe. But she doesn't even say it in a nice way. Like if you're a really truly nervous flyer, you'll be like, "Oh, would you mind just not speaking to me for a minute? Like I need to stay calm." She point blank stares him down and is like, "Don't talk to me, you piece of shit. Just fly the fucking plane." And
the pilot had only been nice at this point. He said about the mountains, and his first line, which was, I imagine, because they'd cut out something she said before, and it was just the scene was introduced in this way. He said, "I'm doing my very best." She doesn't care.
No, he doesn't give a shit.
Kelly, she lands and she goes to meet Hank straight away at the hospital, which is where the body is being kept from the lake. Hank explains that the tooth was in the body in the morgue, and Kelly is surprised by this for some reason. Probably she's not, because she's not out in the field much, and says she's uncomfortable about dead bodies. Heads up, she hates everything and is uncomfortable about everything, apart from planes, apparently.
Yeah.
So really get used to things Kelly hates. We'll make that a segment. But that's immediately not important until later, guys. Don't worry. As in the next scene, she's analysing the tooth in the morgue, and she IDs it as reptilian, but not a fossil. So it is a much newer tooth.
Yeah. At this point, get back on a plane, back to New York with the tooth, I reckon.
Yes, in a better film, Kelly would have gone home now. Yeah. But unfortunately, everyone, this is Lake Placid, and Kelly's here to stay. And surely someone else could have told that it wasn't a fossil.
A vet. I'm sure a vet in that town would have had the know-how to look at that and go, "That's a reptilian tooth." Done. You don't have to fly out a bitch of a paleontologist from New York to look at something that a vet could do 10 minutes away.
No, and she certainly shouldn't stay here, but she's gonna. She then asks to see the body. Who knows why, but they do show her. And she freaks out because obviously she doesn't like dead bodies, but to be fair, nobody does. And she insists then on being taken to the lake. I was kind of intrigued by her at this point. I was like, oh, maybe she'll drop the bitch thing and, this will all be about now getting to the bottom of what this creature is. And I will get into this later, but this was like a source of disappointment for me because it is just a crocodile at the end of the day. There's nothing really special about it apart from it being maybe 3 feet larger than a crocodile previously been caught.
Well, the premise set out that it was this like Loch Ness monster sort of prehistoric thing that might be like somehow got into the lake. And granted, it's a fucking big crocodile, but
it's big. Yeah.
Is it really noteworthy? They could have made it 5 times bigger. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yes. And if that had been the case, I'd have been much happier. I'd have put up with a lot more of Kelly's bullshit.
Yeah. A tooth the size of a dinner plate.
Yeah. Just a skull cap of that man left.
Yeah.
Hank pulls him out by the hair. Pulls out maybe a bowl.
Sarcastic man. He deserved it. He's rude sarcastic.
Hank, for some reason, does agree to take Kelly out onto the lake, and they get packed up in their car to head out there later that day. And Hank, this is important because Hank explains here that nobody lives within 25 miles of the lake.
Not one.
Except for some old couple who live right on it.
Yeah. Yeah, is this where we go to Betty White?
We're about to. So first, we find out a few more things about our characters here. Firstly, that's also the second time in this movie where somebody says something and then just contradicts it straight away. Nobody lives near the lake, apart from 2 people who definitely do live near
on
the
lake.
Or as close to the lake as you can get.
Without getting wet.
And we also get a bit more character development for Kelly here, where she says she doesn't like mosquitoes. Will that be important again? No. I do love that everything about her character development so far has just been things she hates, and it will continue to be that, just so everybody knows.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, Jack Wells is back in the mix now, who's the fishing game bloke who wasn't chewed in half earlier. He turns up, and we're all ready for a bit of field work. It's important to note here that for some reason this film thinks that we want to see Jack Wells and Kelly together, and that the seed is planted here and it continues throughout the movie. But I am never going to mention it. It is the most drab and sickening
my Lord.
relationship you could watch on film.
It's so awkward the whole way through, and it never creates like any sort of friction. Like there's never a spark between them where it's like, ooh, they might not. They just sort of look at each other a couple of times and like, yeah, maybe, and that's it.
I can absolutely assure you nobody is thinking, will they, won't they? They're thinking, please don't.
Bill Pullman, who is it, Jack Wells, his character doesn't deserve to be with that woman. He's got the best interest of everyone at heart.
Seems like an alright dude. Bit boring, but generally just wants what's best for the community.
Yeah.
He'll flirt with her, but then when it's like that playful flirt, see, now I'm talking about it, Johnny, for fuck's sake. And she'll immediately take offence to it and like snap at him for something. Oh, it's going to happen a lot. So as Johnny was just saying, Hank, Jack Wells and Kelly go to the lake to meet one of the people that they know live there. And it turns out it's only Mrs. Bickerman there now, the wife. And she reveals that her husband died some time ago and she actually killed him because he was ill and it was upon his request. And she hit him over the head with a skillet and buried him under the bulkhead. I didn't really understand what was happening at this point.
Or why she wasn't arrested on the spot.
Yes, that is still illegal, even if they ask
euthanasia
for it.
is still illegal in America. That's a different argument. Let's not get into that. But she did admit to a police officer that she murdered someone. And then, if you don't believe me, dig him up.
This woman only does illegal things throughout this movie. And even when she's arrested, she's not really arrested. They let her stay in her house.
Yeah. Apparently hitting the person, I don't know that it is, but in an episode of, I think it was Dallas or something, she did an episode of that years ago and she killed someone with a skillet. In that, it can't be Dallas. I've never seen Dallas. I don't know if it's that kind of thing. But in an episode of something before, I don't know whether it's a callback. You can cut all of this, by the way.
I'm loving it. And I believed you immediately. I've never seen Dallas. I've only heard of it. And it sounds like something Betty White might have been in.
Yeah. She's definitely had a long enough career. Let's say it was Dallas. But yeah, apparently it could be a callback to that, or it might just be a coincidence.
Or MASH.
Yeah.
Or one of them, you know?
I was going to say Law and Order, but I don't know how old that is.
Ooh, that might be a bit too far ahead. Yeah, baby. So our team, after speaking with Mrs. Bickerman, they head out onto the water to do some investigating. And Kelly asks why this lake is so black. And instead of answering that question, Hank says they wanted to call it Lake Placid, but that name was already taken. At this moment, I paused the movie because I had to check that I was actually watching Lake Placid and not some, scary movie version of it. Because it's fucking ridiculous for a movie to be called Lake Placid if the lake that they spend, no fucking jokes, 90% of this fucking movie on isn't called Lake Placid.
Name it something else.
It actually turns out that it's called Black Lake.
To call it fucking Black Lake, that's arguably a better
good
title.
fucking name for a monster movie. Sorry, a creature feature. That wound me up for sure. Also, who regulates the name of lakes? Is that important? Is it trademarked by the Big Lake Corporation? Surely you can just call your lake the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, it would make it quite difficult trying to find it, wouldn't it? But there's like 20 different Los Angeles, so where does it stop? If you can name different towns and cities the same thing, why not name lakes the same thing? And it's only a lake. It's not like a massive like waypoint for most people, is it?
Also, why is this a plot point? Why is it interesting that the lake was almost called Lake Placid? I know it's because if the lake was placid, there wouldn't be a fucking crocodile in it. But I think you have used a word in which the target audience of this film. Those aren't connecting for anyone. People watch this for some dumb shit. They don't want to think about it. Nobody is like worrying about the meaning of Placid, apart from us right now.
Yeah.
That's the point of this.
Maybe they've done the job, yeah.
Fuck, we're about to unravel this entire franchise, bro.
It's going to be the best film and the best plotted film ever. We break it down.
Hank and Kelly are having a conversation about what the plans are from now on, and obviously Kelly loses her mind because she finds out that she'll be staying in a tent, and
guess what?
If you know anything about her character development, Kelly hates camping.
She didn't think that camping would be in a tent. She wondered if it would be in a Ramada Inn, which is a motel from what I'm aware.
Yep, that's
who says they're going camping and then stays in a house?
In a hotel.
In a hotel, yeah. Oh, I'm going camping in my bed.
Well, thankfully, Hank puts a break on that conversation, as well as the boat, because he's just spotted something in the lake. And what he's spotted is just a severed moose head. And he pulls that out of the lake and he throws it at the floor. And Kelly has a bit of a fucking thing because she doesn't like moose heads, does she? Surprise, surprise. But what's really important here is we're wondering, probably a bear, what did this to this moose?
Yeah. But it is just the head. But she when he picks it up, he just puts it on the deck of the boat, right? So it's not that crazy. They fish it out of the water, he drops it on the deck of the boat, and she says, "You threw it at me," and then proceeds to slap him. So she shouts at a police officer, then slaps him.
She assaults a police officer twice,
Yeah. And then I said, my note here is that she's the sort of person who would sue you for damaging her car if she ran you over.
Yes, and you have just evoked a very specific meme in my head where a girl does that exact thing to a poor boy, but he has it all on film. It's not very entertaining explaining a meme, Evan, but there you go. So they arrive back at camp after finding fuck all other than a moose's head. Moose head? Moose's head?
Mice's heads.
Nice. And even though she's already been told that it's not a bear by several people and has discerned that this tooth was a reptilian, Kelly is bothering this deputy who's happened to get packed into her tent. Deputy Gare, I don't know why I've said that, it's not important again. She asks whether or not a bear could have ripped a moose's head off, and Deputy Gare says, no, that's probably not likely. In the realms of this film, that's fine. In real life, I'm fairly sure a bear can rip a moose's head off.
Yeah, for sure. Their claws can cut through pretty much everything. They're big, strong animals. And also, it's not like they're not in the area because we know later on that there are. So I think for it to take down a moose, probably not the most absurd thing, but don't worry. It's probably something else.
Well, Deputy Gare disagrees. And before she can escape this conversation with Kelly, Kelly stops her with a nice question where she says, what's it like to be a woman in the woods in Maine? And goes on to ask, and I'm paraphrasing a little here, whether all the men are going to get horny and rape her like in Deliverance.
Yeah. What an odd thing to say to another human being.
A lot of odd things in this movie. It is played off as a comic moment, which I can sort of understand. But truthfully, you could probably do anything you wanted to her in the woods, and she would still think it was a bear. So
yeah.
What's she going to do?
Probably, yeah.
So just as that lovely conversation ends with Deputy Gare, a helicopter swoops in over the lake and lands right near the camp. As if there wasn't already enough happening in this movie, now we've got this weird, rich, kooky mythologist, crocodile lover named Hector Sear turn up.
Yeah.
Well, if you thought you didn't like people so far, God, the bounds of your not liking things hasn't been tested enough, because this guy is, just fundamentally unlikable.
Yeah, he looks like a overweight yoga teacher in a wig. It's exactly. But I will say that helicopter looks fucking cool. It was all like alligator print on it, well, crocodile print, I presume, on the outside. Right. It looks really fucking cool.
If Sam was here, he would have lost his mind that you just confused alligators with crocodiles.
But his whole thing is that he travels the world to swim with crocodiles and stuff, and he likes coming face to face with them, and they never want to kill him. Apparently, is what he sets up. But he is now the money and the facilitator for the rest of the film. Without him, nothing would happen. He has all of the equipment.
That. True. Everyone else is woefully unprepared, but I don't understand why. The same with Kelly. Why is he allowed to stay around? Yeah. He's the only one interested in capturing the crocodile or learning about it. Everybody else wanted to kill it beforehand. But again, this is just the film gently convincing you that it must go on for a little longer.
He just injects himself into what's an ongoing investigation.
Yes.
That's like
crime
me going
scene.
up to a crime scene and being like, all right, I've watched CSI a few times. You all right to have a go? Have a poke
Sunglasses
around?
on.
Yeah. Have you got a windbreaker for me?
So we now get a kind of info dump about what's happening from Hector Sear. He is also like kind of the exposition guy. And he says that crocodiles have been migrating north and this lake, whatever the lake is called, connects up to the ocean. So it's very possible that this crocodile, if it is a crocodile, could have ended up here. Hank points out that crocodiles can't swim in salt water, but Hector can't refute that. And the movie forgets that at this point. So...
Didn't he say someone should tell them that? I was like, but I googled it. They can't. He's acting like they could. Or maybe he did. Maybe I'm making that up. But I've got a note here saying that he said that little jab that he always does.
He says very weird things all the time, just to piss Hank off. They immediately hate each other, and you'd think it'd be funny, but it's actually just a very agitating scene every time it happens in this movie. It's very grating, yeah. Because it holds up the plot, and the only purpose it serves is to extend a scene a little bit longer, so we forget that we haven't seen a crocodile for a little while.
Yeah.
Anyway, now everybody's agreed that they're all going to do this together for some reason, and I'm going to be naming a lot of characters at the same time from now on, so prepare yourselves. Hector, Kelly, Jack, and Hank all row out onto the lake. They're scanning for a crocodile signature, whatever that means, possibly sonar, I guess.
Yeah.
And Hector reveals that he and Kelly banged at some point. No idea why, and it's never mentioned again.
Anyway. She's like, no, we didn't. So this man is a liar as well. Or maybe they did.
Or she's lying, yeah.
Yeah, he's clearly got some moves because he puts it on one of the officers later and she's well
Deputy
up for it.
Gare. Yeah, it's Deputy Gare. Yeah, I pretended like she wasn't important, but she is. She bangs this guy. So Hank stops the boat here because he sees, quote, white perch being afraid in the water. Which, if you haven't seen and you can't imagine, just think about piranhas feeding. And if you've never seen that, just imagine putting your hand in the surface of the water and going shh, psh, 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 psh. That's what this looks like.
Yeah.
And as they're watching that, the boat capsizes because something is below them, and Kelly and Jack are thrown into the water and they're desperately trying to get back.
I'd like to point out that Jack was... Oh, no, sorry, not Jack. What's the deputy?
It's a lot of names.
Ben
Hank?
Gleason, Hank. He was in the boat that was dragged at the beginning, right? So he knows how powerful this animal is. And yet they go out in kayaks, and I just finished typing, kayaks probably isn't a good idea. This animal, as they know, is probably pretty big. And at that moment, it does a full flip over in the air. And this is the first of many times that Kelly decides that she doesn't like being in vehicles.
She hates not being in the water, Jonny.
Yeah.
Or rather, the attention being on her.
Oh, yeah.
So somehow they all get to safety because I guess the crocodile is just playing with them to some extent, but really there's only so much budget that could be spent on this, and we can't afford to see the crocodile yet. But it's coming soonish, so don't worry about it. We're back at camp, and they're having a little conversation, and Kelly phones the US Wildlife Service to try and get some help, but they will just not believe a single word from a paleontologist who, again quote, works at one of the natural history museums.
Not the Natural History Museum in New York.
No,
with Ben
she didn't
Stiller.
even mention New York. Or any other building name or department that she might be a part of. Just
Is it the Smithsonian? Is that the name of it?
Would be great. Yeah, just drop that.
I don't know.
She's an in-house, not a field worker, paleontologist for a natural history museum. Somehow that doesn't manage to convince them, so we aren't getting any help at this point. As if we aren't just full to the brim of things happening. Randomly, next to where they stood, they find a half-chewed, half-digested human toe in the grass. Probably belonged to the man from the start of the movie. This somehow, I don't know, Hector does some long speech about acid or something, but he deducts that this is definitely a crocodile now. I don't know why this is the clue, and not the fact they were just knocked out of the boat. But this is it. I'm still holding out for a bear. I wrote that in my notes.
That swims underwater.
soon. Well, they swim, don't they?
Yeah, above water though, don't they?
I don't know enough about bears.
Maybe they
Probably,
do.
yeah. Never seen a bear dive.
Off the top board.
So we very quickly forget about the toe, and we never learn what they do with it. We skip straight to nighttime, and for some reason, we're just having a party in the middle of what is a very jungle-like environment. Well, we're in the bayou or some such tree-surrounding river lake type murky water shit. You can imagine it. Kermit the Frog would be playing the banjo on a stump somewhere nearby, and near that there are two tents set up, and there are disco lights and drinks and lots of frisking.
Yeah, I think there's two men digging a hole outside.
Yes, there are. Yes,
and he's like, he paid us to do it, and they're like, well, stop then, come inside, and then they go into the tent. And it's Hector talking to the police officer that I was talking about earlier.
Deputy
and
Gare.
he says, "Law enforcement is dangerous work. You've got such big, wonderful boobs." In the same breath, he says, "It's dangerous. Nice tits, nice rack."
Nobody lives near the lake. 2 people live near the lake.
Yeah.
That's just this movie, bro. Nice rack. Nice.
He is a predator.
He is such a strange... Everybody's a weird character in this movie, but he is the one I'm by far the most confused by.
Yeah.
What is he doing and why is he in this? Who knows? Anyway, so the party shut down after Hank's had enough of Hector's bullshit. And then we kind of cut to outside where Jack and Kelly are talking about why she's really there. And you think you're going to get this, sort of meaningful moment where she's really there investigating, or she thinks that dinosaurs might have actually survived and they might be lurking about underwater because the meteor wouldn't have affected them under there, or some fucking, like you said earlier, Loch Ness bullshit, yeah?
Yeah.
But instead, it literally is that she was dumped and she's too sad to go home yet.
Well, go on holiday.
Go
on holiday, get pissed in a bar. Don't go hunting a crocodile in a place that you famously hate, surrounded by people that you think are going to attack you.
You are doing nothing but things you hate. Pilots, mosquitoes, camping, moose heads.
You've done your job. You did it days ago. You could have said, yeah, still working here, don't worry. You could have gone for a spa break. You could have really got some me time going. No. I'm going to continue doing things I hate to punish myself.
How will I remain a bitch otherwise? Yeah.
She's... Oh, God.
Anyway, it's now sleepy time, and everyone's settling down for the night. But Hank wakes up to go for a piss after all the partying. There is so much steam coming up from the piss. I wasn't going to mention this, but I can't stop thinking about it. Is it just really cold?
Sauna.
Or too much effects? I don't know, but it was very distracting.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I've got a note of that too.
Yeah, I didn't know where to go with it. I just really needed to say it.
Mine's literally steamy piss, full stop.
I highlighted it in the colour where it's actually, don't say this, Ev. It's not very funny. You don't have anywhere to go with it. But I saw it, I was like, I need to know if Jonny thought it was too much steam as well.
Yeah. It was like the fog machines in Arachnophobia.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I think he might have actually been pissing, because when he pulls up his pants and you sort of get a shot of it, it's all kind of one shot. There's piss stains on his little tighty whities.
Yeah, Hector says, waving his wang around, scaring the shit out of me. So he must have been pissing.
Yes. Well, you're quite right. He bumps into Hector, who's setting more traps outside. This scene is supposed to be setting up that we're eventually going to be trapping the crocodile near the camp.
Yeah.
But I assure you, no such thing happens.
Do they come close?
Well,
No.
I guess so. No.
Yeah, but not through any means that they've actually
Not
done.
the traps, no.
He paid 2 men to dig a hole.
When he tried to fuck their colleague. Yeah, that's fair. That's why he was doing this. Yeah, okay.
Get these dickheads out of the way.
So Hank and Hector have a little argument, as they always fucking do. And eventually Jack comes out and says, look, if you interfere with the investigation, you're gone. Unfortunately, he never does go, but we can hope. Now our crack team are back on the lake again in very similar sized boats to the one that was just capsized, with more crocodile sensing equipment, big quotation marks there. Hector and Jack decide to dive into the lake to actually look for the crocodile. I guess. I don't know what you do after that. Once you see the crocodile, I suppose you die.
You know it's killed mice? Mices?
Mices? Is that what you
No,
decided
I don't
on?
think so.
Something like that, I don't know.
I don't know. But yeah, you know it's killed people, and it's killed a man very quickly and easily by ripping him in half. Is that really the way you want to go, by going in the water to find it actively? They've got fucking sonar and radar, as it turns out later.
Yes, and I think they're even using it right now. But
Yeah.
the writers of this movie have written themselves into a hole themselves because they realise we always want to be in the lake, literally in the water, to see the crocodile, but there is no conceptual reason any human would ever get in that water with the crocodile, so we all agree just to ignore it. Yeah, so they're combing the bottom of the lake looking for stuff, and Jack does spot the tail of what could possibly be a croc and or a bear. And in the meantime, in the boat, Kelly asserts that the crocodile is probably on land, which definitely means that the crocodile is in the water. There's a big old tug from below the depths, and Kelly is knocked into the water for...
Again.
God,
for the second time.
Second time, okay.
Second time, but just highlighting how much... either she has terrible, terrible balance, or she just wants to try and get someone to save her.
She was jumping in already. She hit the water before that croc hit the boat, for sure. Nobody's looked at me in seconds.
I need to find a new man, quickly.
Jack and Kelly managed to get back in the boat, but Hector's still in there somewhere. If you are like me, you are hoping that Hector's going to die at this point, because if you've suffered through all of this, you're not a fan. You're not a fan of anyone. Any of them can die. But unfortunately, there is an unnamed police officer in the boat at this time, and he is the chosen one to get murked. So he's like dangling a radio in the water or something.
Yeah.
And instead of letting it go, he holds onto it once the crocodile pulls, and is also pulled into the water.
No, it bites his head off in midair, doesn't it?
Yeah.
He's like, he's leaning over the boat, and it bursts out the water and takes his head off.
Gets him.
I thought that was pretty, because he just flops back into the boat like headless, and they're all like, fucking hell! But he also, I don't get too far ahead. But it must have just bitten it and spat it straight back out, because we find this head.
Shit, we do find a head, don't we?
Yeah, so maybe it's got like knives on its back and it just cuts it off, or like it bites it off and then rather than eat it, it just spits it out.
Jonny, if you were writing this movie, I'm sure you would have made it so the croc is smart enough to know that they're hunting them, and so he's just hunting them for fun, and that was some kind of mind game. But unfortunately, I guess the croc just isn't hungry at this moment, and so spits the head out for later.
They're learning.
Zooming forward past some more flirting, some arguing, and definitely assuming it was all a bear again, they find a croc print in the mud. This is quite a bit later on. There's a fairly huge segment of this movie that you don't need to watch. So, hey, if you are watching at the same time as you're listening, fast forward now until you get to the croc print. Kelly and Jack essentially want to take a cast of the print. And if you thought the arguments are over, they are absolutely not, because Jack insinuates that Kelly could be doing this slightly better, and Kelly fucking freaks out, obviously. And this is, as you were just talking about, Jonny, where the head rolls out of the grass.
Not rolls, is catapulted as she steps on a stick.
It is, you're right. I'm thinking about the toe they found moments ago in the same spot that they find the head.
Exactly, where they should have looked a bit harder. It's mental that this happened. I want to see the positioning of how that head was on this stick. It's what happened in Arachnophobia, where the thing's on his chest,
yes,
and he flicks
flings
the fucking
it into the circuit box.
Yeah. It's that whole thing, and then it just rolls down, and they're like, oh shit, that's your man from earlier. It's so fucking unnecessary. What would be better if you never found the head, and it was just a crocodile decapitating people? You don't need to find the head, it makes no difference.
Yeah, no wonder this fucking croc keeps killing people. It's not chewed or digested a single fucking thing. It bites their head off and then leaves it somewhere else.
It's starving.
So after we've taken the cast of this croc and I think they just leave the head there. We never talk about the head again, I don't think. I think there is a scene where Hank is upset that his deputy is dead, but I think that was earlier, right after he died. I don't think he has much to say
and
right after they find his head.
Hector sort of consoles him, and that's quite a nice moment between them. But don't think that this new like respect for each other is gonna last.
No, and even that kind of turned into a farce within like 30 seconds, because it is quite a nice moment. You're like, oh, finally, I can enjoy a movie where there is some people getting on, but then Hector goes off on this weird sort of ramble about himself.
It could have made it into this thing.
I just found it so weird.
A ragtag group of people who then became friends and they did this thing together. In the end, everyone hates everyone at the end, and they part as enemies.
Yeah.
Like, it's so unnecessary.
So they've just taken the cast of the print, and Jack is sort of looking through the trees, and because this film only takes place 10 feet out into the lake and 10 feet from the camp, he can see Mrs. Bickerman's house, and she is leading a cow out to the water where the croc is actually waiting. Don't worry about it. She reveals, they head over there after the croc fucking eats that cow, obviously, and she reveals that she's been feeding this massive fucking croc for 6 years, and it turns out that the croc actually killed her husband in a freak accident. An accident where a man accidentally walks up to the water where he knows a crocodile is, where the crocodile is about to accidentally eat his horse, but then the crocodile accidentally eats him. You know, it was an accident.
So why the fuck did she say that she killed him? Why was that the go-to lie?
I think her reason for it later on, the film's reason for it, is that she didn't want anyone to kill the crocodile. But
so why couldn't she say that he drowned?
Yeah. If only you were in the writer's room, Jonny,
in his sleep.
Because they had the first idea, which was I killed him, and they went with that.
Yeah, it's oh god, it's so mad. My note for this is, okay, now it's getting ridiculous. Betty White is feeding the croc a cow. It was at that point that it sort of flipped from this film that was they're trying to hunt something to this woman's feeding a crocodile.
She is such an odd addition to this. Probably my favourite. Like, she clearly gets what the tone of this movie is supposed to be, because she's quite aggressive and mean to everyone.
Yeah.
Well, I say that like everybody isn't aggressive and mean to everyone, but it plays against our known persona of her, which is why that is funny. Whereas everyone else in this movie kind of follows her lead, but at the time I didn't know who any of these were.
No.
Well, I say that like I've seen this movie before, but I wouldn't have known who they were.
Well, they say at that point, there's like, Peter would be glad, as in PETA, would be glad to see, to hear about you feeding cows to crocodiles. And I don't know whether at the time, but didn't she go on to be like the spokesperson for Peter? I think
you know more about Betty White than me, my man.
Well, she's like the Americans' David Attenborough, isn't she? Or was she? She passed away a couple of years ago, didn't she?
R.I.P.
Yeah, R.I.P. Bless up.
I have no idea. I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know. This movie is wiped my mind of all knowledge,
because it could be wrong. Oh, she also calls Hank Officer Fuckmeat, which I thought was funny coming out of a little old lady's mouth.
Yeah. It's strange because she doesn't... I think maybe because I became aware of Betty White when she was a fair bit older, closer to like, probably, you know, within 5-10 years of her dying. Yeah. But she looks quite young in this. She looks like an old lady, but younger than she... Oh, all I'm describing is age. Oh, never mind.
How old was she when she died?
She was 90, younger than...
Quite old, I think. Nearly 100.
Yeah, she was almost 100.
She looked...
Yeah, for sure.
She looked at least 22 years younger than when she died.
Yes, that is what I'm trying to say. Fuck. Right, we're off the rails.
Yeah, back on.
So I decided to, even though this doesn't happen chronologically, I decided to do the writer's work and split these into sections that made sense. So going back in time a little bit, Hector is taking his helicopter over to a cove where he thinks that the crocodile might be living. This is happening at the same time as when they're taking the cast. And is it cast or cask?
What, of a film?
Footprint.
Oh. No, it's, it's I would say cast, but yeah.
Cast, yes.
Cast.
No, or C-A-S-K.
Now you've questioned me, I have no idea.
Okay, shit.
Let's just ignore it. Am I going to Google it? No.
No, let's just keep going, baby. He decides to go for a swim because he is so fucking confident. This guy, we haven't really talked about him as much as we probably should have, but he is an actual fucking nutter. He truly believes in some weird way that like crocodiles are almost like godlike beings. He keeps referring to them as dragons, which kind of makes me feel sick because it almost feels sexual the way he's saying it. Like he's
I got like that impression too.
It's not just like a sort of respect for them about like because they're fucking cool animals. I can understand some being really interested animals. They're like along with sharks, one of the longest surviving species of animal. The same form, unevolved.
Yeah, they said that it's again in the future, but they said it's like 150 years old, which which is important. Like I think that's pretty cool. I can understand why people would be obsessed with it in a way. Well, but he is like even his helicopter, like we said, is covered in this stuff, and he's like the crocodile man. Like it's a bit like what's his face, the Australian dude who got killed by a stingray.
Steve Irwin.
Yeah, it's like that if he was a horrible, horrible narcissist.
If there was such a thing as bronies, people who love My Little Pony for crocodiles, this guy is it. Nice. Yeah, we've come to a good description of what this guy is like, and now we can go on to it. He is proper confident that this crocodile's not going to kill him. So he's swimming around in the water near its cove. The croc is obviously just fed over at Betty White's house. I forgot the name of her character, so she's now Betty White. Yeah. And finds Hector at his cove. Immediately, Hector realizes that he was wrong about only this individual croc, though. He's still on good terms with all the others, and he tries to quickly get back in his helicopter. The croc bites on and tries to pull it back down. Very sick scene.
So at this point, I was looking at that helicopter because it's trying to take off. There's this bit where it's wrestling with the crocodile, and I googled what the largest crocodile they've ever found was, and they said it's 20 feet and 3 inches long, and it weighed 2,370 pounds. The big motherfucker is the one that we've seen. It was called Lo Long. And you find out in the coming scenes that this one is 30 feet long. So if you were to work it out, it would be, let's say, 3,555 pounds. So what I've done here is I've compared it to different things and how many things this crocodile weighs. So it weighs the same as my van with me in it.
I thought you were going to take measurements that everybody who's listening could relate to, but instead something definitely only we would know.
Yeah. A Transit Connect van with me in it, 2 smart cars, 10 corner sofas,
10
average, 10 corner sofas, 19 Bill Pullmans. And my personal favourite, as I'm drinking right now, 3,793 cans of Stella.
Oh, beautiful.
That's a big fucking crocodile, not an alligator.
Okay. Well, all of this is definitely going in the episode description. So Hector gets back to camp, and people know that he's been in the water with this crocodile, and Jack is just bloody not pleased at all. And you remember earlier how he said that if Hector did anything to get in the way of the investigation, he'd be thrown out of the camp. Well, Jack says that again, instead of doing anything about the time he said it last time.
Yeah.
Kelly sort of consoles him, which is weird. I didn't know that these characters were so close, other than that they might have banged at some point.
Yeah,
allegedly. And Hector sort of says that he wanted the crocodile to judge him. Again, this weird leaning into this, I'm going to call them cronies, I guess, which is crocodile bronies. Cronies, yeah, we're going to go with that. And he agrees not to go back in the water because this crocodile was actually quite terrifying. But he says to Kelly that they can't let Jack and Hank kill the croc. He still wants it to live because he's fascinated by how it got here and how old it is and how big it is. Probably its massive fucking dick.
Yeah, I was very close to sort of writing this off until they said that, and then it gives a motive for them to come in contact with it again in sort of a meaningful way. Otherwise, they would just fucking
just
drop a load of grenades in the fucking water.
Yeah, I get why the movie wants us to save it. And I don't even want the croc to die. The only thing I think has
Makes
been
one.
set up at this point would mean I want the croc to die is the gun that Hank has been talking about all movie. He pulls it out when they're packing up. He's pulled it out a few times whenever they're like in a close situation. And it looks like a shotgun, but it is not. It is some sort of grenade launcher or mini rocket.
I'll tell you what it is.
Oh my God, tell me.
It's a fake gun that they made as a prop specifically for this film.
Oh.
They called it a lightweight forward area air device unit, which I don't think is an acronym for anything. No, but it's as a name is pretty good.
Sounds like something, doesn't it?
Sounds like military, but yeah, it looks like it's a 40mm grenade launcher. But the person that I saw, apparently it's not. It's firing some kind of like solid shotgun kind of thing, like you said. But
it
is
looks
effective,
like a
as we'll
burst.
find out.
Oh, we're going to get to that. So Hector hatches a plan to trap the croc, and he has to convince everyone in the group to agree with it. So essentially, Florida Fish and Game are now on their way. Not the US Wildlife Service or the Fish and Game Department that Jack is from. This is
Fucking
Florida
army.
Fish and Game. These are, for some reason, the bad guys. And they're on the way to kill the croc. So Hector proposes they try to trank it and trap it at the same time. Everybody's worried that you can't trank it and you can't trap it. It's just too big.
Yeah.
Don't worry, guys. They're fucking gunny, aren't they? Jack especially takes like a pretty hard line against this. He is well up for killing this cunt.
Oh, yeah, and that doesn't fall off either.
No, until the moment that gun is in Hank's hands.
Yeah.
So the first step of this plan, which is pretty good to be fair, they head over to Mrs. Bickerman's farm, which is Betty White, where they just steal one of her cows.
Which she has a problem with, despite seeing her feed one to a fucking crocodile earlier.
They strap this cow to the bottom of the helicopter, and Hector flies it over to the cove he'd been at earlier, where all the deputies can line up with tranquilizers in their cars and shoot down at the croc. Now, I know that this film at the end says no animals were harmed in the filming of this movie, and I'm sure all the crocodiles were fine if there were any. But this cow was absolutely harmed. That's a real cow. You cannot tell me that's a CGI cow. That's a real cow dangling in the water. There is no way that's not harmed.
No, for sure. They didn't actually do it from a helicopter. I looked it up and they hung it from a crane. This poor fucking cow is just dangling in the water like, oh. And also, it transitions from day till night. So how long is that cow in the fucking water for?
Long time, soaking like a fucking teabag, mate.
I've just noticed that we skipped the bear from earlier.
Oh shit, we did. Okay, let's hit that before the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Where along was that?
That was after Matey Boy gets his head bitten off. Well, at this bit, you see there's a bear comes out from behind him in the woods, right? So they're all fucking shitting themselves because there's a bear there. And they turn around and then out of nowhere, the crocodile just jumps out of the water and they're using live action footage of a bear. So it's a real bear on camera. And then it turns into some PlayStation 2 graphics where it's wrestling around with this also badly animated crocodile. This is so bad compared to the rest of the film. It's just jarring from where it was an actual bear to then it's like something out of the Jungle Book.
Anytime there is movement or interaction with other objects, the CGI in this movie really struggles. I liked when the bear turned up because I really thought the movie was about to go, it was a bear all along.
Yeah, I did
and
too.
Then, like, sort of another movie would begin where there is a crocodile and it's new people. You know, I thought that'd be quite funny. But yeah, the bear just gets absolutely fucked up by the crocodile.
If it was done now, that would look really cool. But no dice.
So this cow dangling from the helicopter. I love how these guys are all going out of their fucking way now to save this crocodile, A creature cold-blooded, doesn't give a fuck about me or you,
Kill 3 people.
But that cow can go fuck itself.
Yeah. It doesn't
Just
matter.
fucking dangle him.
To be fair, it would have been eaten anyway by that croc at some point if Betty White kept on feeding
I
it.
suppose.
Yeah. Early dinner.
So they eventually lure the croc up onto the shore, and it takes a bite at the cow, but Jack tranks it beneath its armor plating, its scales, But Hector drops the cow into the water by accident, and that kind of swings his helicopter off balance, and the croc disappears into the water. The helicopter crashes, and Hector is now in the water. That cow is dead, for sure. Probably not in real life, but definitely in the film.
No, it comes back later. Because I made a note of it afterwards. They make sure to say, "Oh, and don't worry, the cow's all right," because it just walks past him behind the frame.
Oh, I hate this movie less now. I was really annoyed about the cow.
But also, if there was a cow swimming around in the water, that crocodile would eat that cow and then leave again, probably. Unless it is as intelligent as they're making out it to be, just beheading people and spitting out heads.
Hector gets back onto his helicopter and he's trying to stay away from the gator. No, the crocodile, which is sort of playing between the helicopter and the shore, keeping everyone involved. Hank is trying to get close enough to the croc to get a shot with his shotgun/grenade launcher. He's obviously standing in the water. Big jump scare. The crocodile was actually right next to Hank. But no dice. Hank's fine. There's a lot of fucking names in this, mate. The deputies all shoot at the crocodile, but it's no good. Some are landing those tranks, but this croc's just too fucking big and he's too fucking angry to go down anytime soon.
It's a lot of cans of Stella.
So much is going on here that I completely missed how and why Kelly got in the water. But I blinked, and all of a sudden, she is halfway between the helicopter and the shore, even though the croc has just jumped out at Hank. Did you catch it?
Well, I'm guessing that she's going to go and get Hector, who can swim. We've seen him swim in the past. He's seen it on the shore. He could swim to shore. Why is she swimming out to him for him to swim back to shore with her? Also, we see the crocodile pop his fucking things on his helicopter earlier. During this whole thing, it's fine. I don't know whether he carries spare ones on board, but it's a pretty small helicopter.
Well, it needs to stay afloat for this scene and for all coming scenes because, as we're about to learn, the helicopter is the trap.
It's so stupid.
Kelly's in the water, probably because everybody's paying attention to the croc and she needed a little bit of that sweet stuff, you know. Hector tells her to dive because, as we've just said, fucking crocodiles can't see shit underwater, and she managed to avoid it on the first run. She hides behind a tree underwater, and the croc does see her this time, but sort of can't close his... So imagine this. Your back is to a tree in the water. There is a croc swimming up to the tree. It locks its jaws around you, but the tree stops it from biting you.
Yeah.
There you go. Like an audio book. And then she eventually ends up on their helicopter with Hector, which now just worsened the situation. Nothing is better now.
People to save. It's just... I hate her so
a helicopter
much.
where one of the inflatable bits is popped.
Yeah.
So slowly sinking with double the weight. But it's fine. The croc decides to smash up through the helicopter to try get to them, but it gets lodged in between the doors. So imagine you're a crocodile and you're looking up sideways at a helicopter and both doors are open and you're aiming right the way through to get to the guy stood on one side of the helicopter, and then you get wedged in between. That's what it's like.
A perfect analogy would be in Die Hard 4.0, where Bruce Willis jumps the motorbike into the side of a helicopter. That's exactly what this crocodile does.
That is the only part of that movie I remember.
Yeah, it's the only good part of that movie. But yeah, he's stuck in there like he's... I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it. I would also like to think that this giant animal could probably wiggle free. They're powerful animals even when they're small.
Yeah.
And this is already fucked and crashed and split apart and what have you. This animal could get... maybe the tranquilizer's starting to do a little bit of something, which is part of it, but...
I think that's what we're supposed to believe, because he does do, very soon, a little sleep. But this is happening as a plot device, because as the drugs kick in, whilst the croc is caught in the helicopter, Jack tells Hank to shoot the croc. Now there's the big debate again. Are we going to kill it, or are we going to try and save it? Jack is probably looking at it and thinking what we're thinking. That's too fucking big to stay there.
Yeah,
and I don't reckon those drugs are going to last. So just fucking pop it in the head and everything will be fine. Everybody's trying to argue against it. Jack's pretty adamant until Hank actually goes to take the shot, and then, no, we don't want to shoot anything. And at this point, I was pretty fucking annoyed. This gun has been referenced so many times by Hank, but I was like, are they actually not going to shoot it?
Yeah.
But then also, conflicted because I was like, I actually like the croc. It's the only cool part of this movie. I don't want it to die.
Yeah,
Thank
for sure.
God. The writers are fucking geniuses because a second crocodile,
Yeah, boy.
almost as big as the fucking first, jumps out of the water and
Atomizes
its head
it.
fucking explodes into, knowing this film, what is just a pile of severed heads because they love that shit.
It reduces it to fucking dust. It is... I don't know what is in those fucking projectiles, but it's something nuclear. It's...
I don't know, but I fucking loved it. I'm
so
pretty happy
good.
at this point. They saved it for a good fucking moment.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I wasn't expecting the second crocodile at all.
Me either.
That was a good addition.
Florida Wildlife and Game finally turned up, and I can only imagine how pissed off they'd be because now they have to clean up a giant fucking crocodile caught in a helicopter, which I assume Hector would want back at some point.
Do you reckon they got the fire brigade in with the jaws of life to free it? Imagine that. Getting that cool. Yeah, we need you down at not Lake Placid, Black Lake,
Whatever it's called.
it is.
Black Lake, yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, well, we'll talk about it when you get here.
And then they turn up, and then they call the fucking paramedics. They're like, no, not us.
That ain't
Yeah, but then we forget about the crocodile for a moment because we've got to end off all our character relationships. And essentially, we're now from the perspective of Kelly, which is the last person you want to be in the shoes of. And she's saying goodbye to every character until eventually she gets to Jack. And they share this boring fucking goodbye moment. And then they get back together and they agree to go to the bar. And Jack asks if she's going to complain the whole time. Like, she hasn't just complained for 82 fucking minutes. My time, I don't even know how much time it's been for you, but you're a fucking saint for pushing through this.
Yeah, I would leave her in the fucking dust of my truck if that was me.
Oh my God, I want to put her beneath the tyre of your truck, mate.
I'm not even going to give her a lift to the fucking airport. Like... No, see you later. She needs to say goodbye to the lake, apparently, is what she said to someone else, which is weird, considering she fucking hates camping and hates everything about it. But
yeah. And that lake is full of fucking severed heads, which she hates.
And atomized crocodiles.
Well, fool on you. Fool on you? You're a fool. Shame on you for thinking that's the end of the movie, because we now have two more.
You. Fool on me.
We cut to Mrs. Bickham feeding some little baby crocs, setting up that all-important sequel. But if that wasn't a convincing enough sequel for you, we also then view the croc being taken on the back of like a big truck. Very, very reminiscent of whatever Jurassic Park movie it is where they put the T-Rex in the thing and take it to the city and the T-Rex gets loose. If that's even Jurassic Park, who gives a fucking shit? The movie's over.
Do you remember when the whale got caught in the Thames?
That does ring a fucking bell, yes.
I can't put a finger on when, but they did that to it. I don't even know if it lived or not, but that was big news for like a week. Basically, if you're not from the UK, a whale swam up a river.
Our big river.
Yeah, the biggest river. I don't even know if it is, into the centre of London. And then they had to put it on the back of a lorry and drive it back to the coast, I guess. And
they just scooped the dust it'd become back into the water, hoping it would reform somewhere else.
Yeah. I mean, So, well, they've got two avenues for sequels now, haven't they? They've got the Crocs in the lake, and then they've got the big boy going back to... Was it Hector said that he's got a place for it?
Yeah, he alludes to it being like an empty tanker somewhere that they can put it in.
Yeah.
Who knows? I'm positive he is in none of the sequels, and I'm sure that none of the sequels relate to either of those two endings.
No.
They're all standalone movies in which a crocodile is terrorizing 3 to 4 people for 80 minutes.
Well, there aren't many sequels either.
4, I think?
No, there's 5.
5?
Yeah. Lake Placid 2, 3, Lake Placid the final chapter. No, it isn't. Lake Placid Legacy. And Lake Placid versus Anaconda. And then it's featured in 2 other sort of Sharknado versus Croctopus kind of things, I think.
Oh, I'm desperate to do all of them, you know.
That would be pretty good, actually.
I have a kind of like obsession with franchises where the first one is iconic and then they just keep going. And then you always speak to people who are like, oh no, the third one's the best. 2 is mediocre. Power through. Still watch it.
Of course.
But then watch number 3, which is definitely the best one.
Don't watch 4, but 5.
Wow, that really wraps up the series. So I like the idea of really putting yourself through that. Like watching all 10 Nightmare on Elm Streets in a really condensed amount of time and just fully immersing yourself in what must be worsening movies. But is that everything, Jonny? Because we finished that bloody plot.
I think we have. Yeah, that's it.
Excellent. And because neither of us have seen the fucking movie, I'm just going to ask you, Jonny. So, you think that was good, do you?
Well, reading what I wrote after watching it, I must have liked it a bit. Because I said, in all, I liked it. There was some fairly, there was a couple of bits that made me smile in terms of, comedy aspects. This is all nonsense. What I've written here is not indicative of what I'm feeling right now, so I'm going to ignore that and say it had the potential to be good if they'd filled in the plot holes and made some of the characters, namely Kelly, more likeable, and then even the romantic aspect that wasn't even necessary in the whole film. No need for that at all. If they made that more believable, that could have been good. But I don't want to say I disliked it, because there was definitely things that I did like, but yeah, it's not a great film.
I agree. When I was watching it, I certainly found things I enjoyed, but having gone through that plot just then, I can identify the things that kind of would make me stop from telling people that I like this movie. Firstly, like you said, the comedy in this is a comedy, so take that into the context of everything we've said. A lot of things are meant to be jokes in this. The problem is, you're never sure when something is supposed to be a dramatic scene or an argumentative scene or a romantic scene, or if it's meant to be comedy.
And it's never that funny even when it is.
No. Oh, no. You're not going to laugh.
You would sort of be like, huh.
The romance certainly didn't need to be part of it. If it'd been more a part of those jokes or more tied to losing someone you really cared for in this movie, that would have been fantastic. But unfortunately, like you said, all characters are unlikable, probably because they were trying to make it funny that they were all unlikable.
Yeah, you don't care about their relationships or anything.
No. The thing you really care about is the crocodile and seeing more of that, which makes me think that this should never have been a comedy. This should have been just a straight-up monster movie, TM, where it is actually people afraid of a big fucking crocodile, and it is life or death stakes against this thing, and you're trapped out there with it. This would have been much more interesting as that.
They had the template. They had Jaws. Jaws
it's
did that perfectly. Yeah. In that it was genuinely very scary. Well, I don't know, I haven't seen it in a long time, but it was written as a horror. And all it is Jaws in a lake with a different animal. They could have done that so well, but no dice. Maybe they were trying to change it too much because it is essentially the same film.
They could have even flipped it the other way and just made it a straight-up comedy and taken the piss out of Jaws for everything. Yeah. I think either of those would have been a win, but we kind of got stuck with this sort of weird in between. And it's annoying because even though I had the problems with the spiders and arachnophobia not being big enough for me, and now I know what Chloe must feel like, it was still an enjoyable movie because even though the comedy was weird, and I don't think it's everyone's cup of tea, I liked how sort of displaced it was. Whereas Anaconda, I have no idea whether or not that was meant to be a comedy, but it bloody well was funny.
Yeah.
And a very, very good movie. And the snake looked pretty fucking good.
Yeah.
This, I think, a far cry from either of those. So I'm sorry, Jonny, that I made us watch this, but thank you.
And me, as of Sunday, liked it, so...
Yeah, apparently. You've had some time to think about it, though.
Yeah.
In contrast to the writers of the movie. They just bashed it out on the Sunday and sent it straight to the fucking production company.
I'd like to know if any of the original actors came back to do the sequel. It's 8 years later. It was in 2007, so I doubt it.
Not a chance.
But then in fairly quick succession after that, so 07, 2010, 2012, 2015, 2018, there's pretty good markers for them to hit for sequels. I mean, 3 years on average between all of them.
Oh, I have to watch them now.
Yeah, I think we should probably do the last one. just to see how bad it is, because that got I think it was a Rotten Tomatoes review of like 12% or something, or lower.
There's a format in that. We watch the first movie of a franchise and the last movie of a franchise, and we try to guess everything that's happened in between.
Magic.
Well, I think I've kept you talking about this fucking shit for long enough, Jonny. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Not particularly, other than thank you for having me. I'm going to, again, go and look at my socials. I've got some more music coming out in the next couple of weeks. I've been on a VA for a charity called Mind recently, which is a great cause for mental health and stuff, so go and find that. It's released by Duckland, so yeah, go and have a look.
You send me the links to that, and I'll put them in the description for everybody. Please,
Wonderful.
Jonny, very important stuff. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you again for having me.
No, you're saving me here. Otherwise, it'd just be... You're saving everybody who's listening, because it would just be me otherwise. Nobody wants that. And thank all of you for listening. Please leave us a 5-star review on Good Pods, on Apple, on Spotify, wherever you're listening. And if you can be bothered, give us a follow over on Twitter or Instagram at So You Think Pod. And I really just want to round off this episode by saying it is still insane to me that you have named a movie Lake Placid where even the lake in the movie wasn't called Lake Placid. They wanted to call it Lake Placid, but they didn't. It's called Black Lake. Hey, there you go. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.